and the future legend of the entire auto industry in Europe was headed by another legendary hero, Ferdinand Porsche. After the merge of the two main competitors, Porsche took the path of a complete renovation of production facilities and production technologies. As a result, it was decided to use the ready-made Daimler models, selling them under the new Mercedes-Benz brand. So, in 1926, the K-series model line was presented. By the early 1930s, the main products of the brand were prestigious cars which combined the most advanced technical developments, such as 7.7-liter power units with a capacity of 200 horsepower and luxury interior trim, which made it possible to create maximum comfort for the passengers without interruption to the dynamic performance of the vehicle. In 1936, the world's first mass-produced passenger car with a diesel engine was introduced, which was named the Mercedes-Benz 260D. However, after 2 years, the company was requested by the German government to concentrate on the production of heavy military trucks and vehicles for the top leadership of the army and the country. But in 1944, because of the massive bombing raid of the Daimler factories, the factories were destructed. At the end of the World War II, it took more than a year to restore part of the production capacity of the largest auto concern in Germany. So, in 1946, the factories for the production of body elements and power units were completely restored. Initially, by the 1947, the production of a small car Mercedes-Benz W136, equipped with a 38 horsepower engine, was launched. But by the 1949, it was replaced by the second generation, which was called the W191, and the engine power increased to 80 horsepower. In 1951, saw the return of the Mercedes-Benz brand as the leader in the luxury car segment. Two new models, 220 and 300, were presented, which were equipped with a new generation of power units, which made it possible to develop up to 110 horsepower. In 1954, another risky step was taken, an extensive return for the company to motorsport. In 1963, the first generation of the premium full-size Mercedes-Benz 600 S-Class was presented, equipped with an 8-cylinder 6.3-liter power unit, which worked in conjunction with an automatic gearbox. In 1983, the company expanded its lineup with the introduction of the compact Mercedes-Benz 190 sedan, which became the world's first luxury car to be fitted with both a diesel and a gasoline engine. In the period from 1990 to 1996, the C, E and S models were consistently released, which marked a new era in the development of the Mercedes-Benz brand. In addition, since that time, each of the models received one sports modification, which were made into separate models. And in 1997, the first subcompact hatchback Mercedes-Benz A was presented, which became the most affordable car of the brand. In the same year, the Mercedes-Benz M full-size parquet luxury SUV was introduced, becoming the brand's first fully civilian all-wheel drive vehicle. In addition, since 1998, the company has been launching their production of ultra-compact city cars under the Smart brand. found the most beautiful Mercedes, which stood in an ordinary barn for 53 years. Just imagine that you bought a couple of hectares of land, and on your plot there were some farm buildings with all kinds of slug except for one barn, which for many years was not something that nobody went in, but did not even think to appear there. Having circled your new property, you opened a resting gate, and from there looks at you with the hope the most beautiful Mercedes in the history of the company. And this is the real story that happened in the state of Florida with one lucky guy. The room was found in a mountain of junk and spare parts, which will soon go to the garbage dump, as their condition leaves much to be desired. The new owner did not believe his happiness and ran to the car with their mute enthusiasm to look into the saloon. By raw estimates, the car spent more than 50 years in the shed. How could you forget about such a technical miracle at such a serious time interval? It was a Mercedes-Benz 300 SL Gullwing stood in front of the guy, produced in 1954. Having broken through the documents, it turned out that this one, the 43rd car of all produced. After the car came off the assembly line in October 1954 in Stuttgart, it was first sent to Los Angeles, where it was already delivered to the official dealer of Waco Motors in Miami. Its first owner, a lawyer from Jacksonville named Otto Bowden, was a famous collector with a manic passion for European sports car. Bowden even founded a local sports car club, which later became part of the Sports Car Club of America. Bowden then sold the car to his mechanic Gene Glendinning, who continued to participate in club events. In 1957, it was sold to his third and last owner, a US Navy pilot based in Jacksonville, who used Mercedes almost every day, including numerous trips to Washington, D.C. and West Virginia, and that's just over 1,000 kilometers in one direction. You know how gambling pilots are, so he is done a lot of racing in Florida. So Mercedes ran about 50,000 kilometers, and the inevitable sign of intense use prompted the owner to complete repaint and renew his favorite car. First, the car was parked in the driveway near the house, then moved to the garage, and that's it. The conceived plans were never going to come true. The car hung in a barn for 50 long years. After the tomb had been opened, a forgotten car with a star on its hood appeared before the eyes. Everything from the body, faded grey leather, wheels, and even Engelbert tires ran down, and the original. The identification numbers on the engine and gearbox are the same as those of the manufacturer. There are several good reasons why this 300 SL was so interesting. First, it is the car from the first batch, which boasts a number of features that give it the status of almost prototype. In total, it was produced no more than 1,400 pieces. These include overlays over the wheel arches, an extended gear level protruding from the dashboard similar to the gooseneck. You should agree, not often such rare cars are caught in such interesting condition under a layer of dust and a spiderweb. Immediately after the discovery, the extraordinary 300 SL was repatriated immediately to Germany. Now, the 300 SL belongs to the company Mechatronic, which specializes in classic cars, mainly Mercedes-Benz, and is 2 steps from Stuttgart. The vehicle looks so exciting in its current state that it will not be restored, but will try to preserve and stop further depositions. The ideal original state is so rare, and the most of the nuances are usually lost if the restoration is too zealous. By the way, the seller and the new owner decided to keep quiet about amount of the deal, but according to experts, it is clearly a few $1,000,000. Look at these beautiful pictures, where the exceptional cars immediately met. An old Mercedes 1962 was found in an abandoned barn. Here is something mysterious and hidden in abandoned cars and old barns. The latter may seem like ruins, which are suitable only for firewood, but sometimes may conceal unique rarities worth several tens or even hundreds of $1,000s. In this case, we are talking about an old barn in Manchester, where a classic Mercedes-Benz 190 SL model 1962 was found. The car has been idle for the last 44 years. Found sports car is a car with a factory index W121 in the body of the roadster, and once a Brighton red body color, English red. Judging by the windshield sticker, the last time the car was serviced was in 1974 in Florida. As European Auto Solutions rarities seekers write on the Facebook page, after they dug up the Mercedes, there was an unexpected problem. A family of possums who settled in the engine compartment. The searchers had to sweat hard to get the animals to change their homes. Don't forget to subscribe and like it. Thanks for sharing, and bye-bye. A rare classic Mercedes-Benz 190 SL Roadster is rotting at the back of a car dealership. Mercedes-Benz 190 SL was one of the most beautiful cars of the German brand. It became a more affordable alternative for those who could not afford a luxury supercar 300 SL with doors like a seagull wing. 190 SL was produced from 1955 to 1963 and is now one of the favorite classic cars for car collectors. You can buy a good copy at a European auction for about £90,000 to £110,000. But such demand for these cars does not mean that you cannot find such a car somewhere on the street, swamped with various junk as if it were just some old Moskvich. These pictures were taken in the UK. A rare, expensive roadster seems to have been idle at the back of some car service for quite some time now. The tires are down, there are some old bumpers on top, and the body has a thick layer of dirt. Despite this, the 190 SL seems to have been preserved in quite a good package, except for the broken headlamp, so there is a chance it will be restored one day. The Mercedes-Benz 190 SL Roadster was equipped with the 1.9-litre 120 horsepower engine, which combined with the 4-speed gearbox. This allowed it to reach a top speed of 173 km per hour. Totally 25,881 copies were made. The most luxurious Mercedes from the 70s stood in the garage for over 25 years. Another find, this time in Moscow garage, where one of the most luxurious and powerful sedans from the German company Mercedes lurked since the last century. The 450 SEL was brought to Moscow in the early 90s, where it was used for its intended purpose. Then the car was no longer needed because the owner bought a fresher 140 body and a couple of unnecessary cars he put into the garage. There is another Mercedes at the front with no less interesting history, but let's talk about it next time. Besides, it's been driving out from time to time. The top model in the Mercedes lineup, which was designed for the most discerning and wealthy customers, estimated cost at 1975 was $45,000. Now, the cheapest S-Class will cost you $100,000, but keep in mind that it will be a 3-litre diesel engine with 249 horsepower and basic configurations. For long parking, they chose not the best place. For many years of waiting, the car began to sink into the ground, and the dampness clearly did its job. The car was first demonstrated at the Geneva Motor Show in 1974, and at that time was not only the most expensive but also the most innovative in terms of technical solutions. The main emphasis was placed on safety, and it was from this model that they began to install an airbag on the steering wheel. It was here that they were able to implement an analog of the anti-lock braking system. Surprisingly, the state of the cabin raises almost no questions. The steering wheel is a bit moldy, but that's not a big deal considering how long the car has been in a musty room. Incomplete interior is the trouble of most cars, the owners of which are carried away by a new toy and have forgotten about the old one. All 450 SEL models were equipped with a 3-speed automatic transmission with torque converter, but the rest of the trims had the option of a manual transmission. The mileage is not visible, but it is clearly at least 300,000 kilometers, judging by the condition of both the steering wheel and the seats. The luxurious interior, made from the best materials of that time, still looks good. If you have sat in such cars, you probably remembered how high quality the finishing materials were, not like now. The model stood on the assembly line for only 5 years, and at the beginning of 1980s, production was discontinued. In those days, this car was owned by the most famous and popular celebrities, from Catherine Deneuve to Kennedy Jr. Under the hood was an 8-cylinder M117 engine with a capacity of 4.5 litres, a capacity of 286 horsepower, capable of accelerating to 100 km per hour in 8 seconds. It would seem an ideal option for restoration, but this can only be confirmed after a full diagnosis. Would you buy this handsome car for $4,700? Don't forget to subscribe and like it. Thanks for sharing, and bye-bye. 2 Mercedes-Benz of late 80s was found in old chicken coop. Behind the bales of hay, the W124 coupe and the 190 sedan was hiding. Barn finds have been troubling the minds of all car fans for several years now. Recently, those barn finds have become a real holy grail cup for those who are looking for old cars with minimum mileage. Just imagine that you are opening the gate of an old barn and there is some rare car inside. Isn't that what each of you are dreaming about? But today we are not talking about classic muscle cars or supercars or 60s. In one barn they found 2 Mercedes-Benz of the 90s. They stood behind tall bales of hay, which completely covered them from someone's eyes. Even if you open the barn doors, you probably won't notice the cars stored inside. It is rather difficult to assess the condition of Mercedes, as their bodies are covered with a thick layer of mud, hay, and something what reminds of chicken droppings. Cars probably shared this room with birds for some time. One of the cars is Mercedes-Benz W124 with a 2-door coupe body. To be more precise, such a body had its own designation, C124. Judging by the white direction indicators, we have a recycled version, the release of which began in 1989. The second car is a little simpler. This is a Mercedes-Benz 190 of the W201 sedan generation. The model was produced from 1982 to 1993 and became the predecessor to the modern C-Class. The 190th was equipped with the gasoline or diesel engines, with a working volume of 1.8 to 2.6 liters. The fate of these two cars is unknown. Cars are not that rare and valuable enough to excite time capsule hunters. On the other hand, their mileage may tend to zero. Then it's a completely different story. Don't forget to subscribe and like it. Thanks for sharing, and bye-bye. A unique 1965 Mercedes-Benz 600 with zero mileage. This dusty 1965 Mercedes-Benz 600 is truly unique. Its mileage is zero. From 1965 to 2007, the car stood in America and then was transported to Holland, where it stood for the last 6 years. The car is currently listed for sale at a price of 95,000 euros. The interior is in excellent condition and the paint is original. In total, 2,677 of these Mercedes-Benz 600s were produced. 2,190 of them had a short wheelbase. Don't forget to subscribe and like it. Thanks for sharing, and bye-bye. The rarest vintage Mercedes-Benz SL was found at an abandoned dump. The Hollywood designer completely transformed the Mercedes-Benz 450 SL. Now, the car seems to be taken from some kind of cartoon. The creator of this unusual, at first glance, creator with an interesting star on the radiator grille has long been dead. He was a big businessman who achieved everything with his own hands. In addition, George Barris had an amazing charisma, which most likely led him to such a success. Even from this picture, you can guess what exactly he was doing. Such an unusual design can only say one thing. George designed unusual cars specifically for demonstration in films. Moreover, these films were filmed in Hollywood. For example, this genius man created Monster Coach on Dragula, shown in the Monster Project Truckster from the TV project Vacation, and of course the legendary Batmobile from the old Batman series. This Mercedes-Benz 450 SL was recently found in Fort Lauderdale. The owner of the car placed an advertisement on the internet about its sale. The starting price is $11,500, which is around 900,000 rubles at current rate. The announcement says that the model needs immediate restoration, and now you can't drive this car. We have to admit that Barris did a good job on it. Now you don't recognize the familiar 450 SL. Today it most of all resembles some grotesque cartoon car. Who knows, maybe it was originally created to show up in a cartoon. The entire nose of the car was stretched. This is most noticeable in the photo with an open hood. The huge distance between the radiator grille and the radiator itself immediately catches the eye. Moreover, this distance is even bigger than at the old Cadillac of the 60s. In our opinion, the stretching effect was increased by a badge welded from two emblems and a kink from the radiator grille. You can see that the optics became four-eyed, and the hood received a special stamping which makes it look even more like old American cars. For example, the Tucker 3 headlights or Bolt projects from Chrysler. When examining the middle part of the car, we notice a great variety of elements that give the car this special monstrous look. Take, for example, these unusual C-pillar extensions, which significantly transformed the German original, or the remarkable curtain on a glass selected from special chrome materials. Another American element is the inflated spare wheel space, which George has carefully placed on the roof of the tank. What can we say about the enlarged hind wings? the ends of which are definitely bent up. They are literally smells of 60s, but Paris decided not to touch the saloon. Apparently, the designer was satisfied with everything in it, which is not surprising because the cabin is already full of America. The original V8 engine is no longer working, however, it looks quite fine. The owner additionally offers a set of original parts and other spare parts, like standard German seats. Surely, all restorers are now excited because sometimes it is so painful to look at the extinct legends of that century. In these photos, you can see what the project would be like if it was completed. We have to admit that this model even looks a bit sporty. It is not yet clear for which particular project he prepared it. What does a 1957 Mercedes 190 SL abandoned 50 years ago look like? Rotted to dust. Over the past 10 years, Mercedes-Benz 190 SL models have skyrocketed in value. Why? Quite simple. The two-door luxury roadster was produced only between 1955 and February 1963. And the older the car got, the fewer decent samples remained. Demand creates supply, and if there are not enough cars for everyone, then those rare remaining versions begin to rise in price rapidly. The model is known for many under the body index W121. Convertibles were popular for the most part, but an optional removable hardtop was available as an option. For a long time, the model has been overshadowed by the iconic 300 SL Gullwing and the classic Roadster. 190 SL was considered a cheaper, I could even say, unloved brother, such as Idiot Ivanushka. But recently, collectors have begun to show interest on the one hand as for more affordable and on the other as a rare model. And on the wave of searchers and hype, this proposal appeared. Although looking at the body shining under the sun's rays, you can see that the no-rust converter will help. Even from the disgusting photographs, you can see the metal has completely exhausted its resource and was tired 30 years ago. But the seller is not discouraged and plans to get seriously money for this scrap in the amount of $35,000. As they say, there is two fools in the market, the seller and the buyer. The seller's position is quite understandable, but what will the buyer get? Completely rotten body, even without a hood, which was also poorly painted as the original grey paint is still visible. Forget the soft top roof, it is surprising that the factory hardtop, which wasn't used a lot, is included. It is sad to see it. The interior may look a little bit better than the exterior, but there is still nothing to be happy about. The cabin is also lacking in details, but the original steering wheel and dashboard might be useful to some collector. When you sit inside the car, daylight more and more breaks through the body panels, and this makes it even sadder. And it is unlikely that this 190 SL could be a candidate for restoration. Under the hood was a 1.9-litre 4-cylinder M121 B2 engine with two Solex throttle carburetors, 105 horsepower and a 4-speed manual gearbox. The maximum speed was limited to 173 km per hour. The original price was around $4,000, and now they are asking for a decent $35,000 for these remains. Greed or stupidity? What do you think, guys?
Hello guys, we have a rare exhibit here. It's in a Mercedes-Benz 230N 143 body. As the owner pointed out, this Mercedes is a trophy since World War II. The condition is certainly not super, but I think it can be restored. This rare car has 6-cylinder, 2.2-liter, 4-manual transmission. Claimed top speed was about 72 miles per hour. I really hope that there is a person who will buy this car and give it a second life, will show it at exhibitions in a completely different image. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. Don't forget to click on the bell. Thanks.
What does a Mercedes-Benz that was standing in a barn for over 50 years look like? A 1955 and 2020 Mercedes is mostly distinguished not only by the presence of security systems, but also by the quality of the materials used. The reliability and durability of modern cars now mean nothing to the manufacturer. The main thing for them is to make more money and produce more new cars and spare parts, and people get it. Well, now it's probably time to show you this handsome unit that was imported from Venezuela to Sweden in the early 60s. The road is surprising, and it is not clear why would the owner need such difficulties if the Swedish have all of the Europe nearby, and it is actually enough to cross the Baltic Sea on the ferry. But apparently the owner was not looking for easy ways. He did buy it and even used it, but in 1974 the car was put in a barn with the hope of a complete restoration. But as usual, he did not touch the car anymore. The Mercedes 300 was the flagship of the company in the early 50s. You can even compare it with the modern S-Class. The levels will be about the same. Apparently, it's all about the price. Initially, the cars were used only for the authorities' service, and it was impossible to order them for private use. But a little later, this sedan became available for public use. The cost of the car was 21,000 German marks, and for that amount, you could easily buy 3 new Volkswagen or Opel cars. Although nothing has changed even now, the ratio of budget cars has remained at the same level. In 7 years of production, less than 800 cars were produced. The quality and the condition of the materials are amazing and surprising.
Abandoned luxury Mercedes-Benz 300 SEL, just standing in the yard and rotting. Despite its sound state, this 1967 Mercedes-Benz 300 SEL still looks incredibly majestic. Flat wheels, dropped suspension, and faded paint only add to charm. The seller notes that the Mercedes can be a successful project for a full restoration. Yes, the car is full of problems ranging from corrosion to missing parts, but the end result will be a fantastic car. If, of course, there is enough strength, both material and physical. Under the hood is a 6.3-liter engine. The car arrived at this place on its own, although it was more than 10 years ago and the engine was not started. The 300 SEL 6.3 is the Mercedes benchmark of the time, with an incredible ability to produce highly reliable luxury vehicles that could be used for years in tough road conditions in complete comfort and at high speeds. The 8-cylinder M100 engine is not cheap to repair, and the new owner will have to take it seriously so that later he does not have to look for a new complete engine. But of course, there are nuances, terribly expensive parts, many of which are not available even through Mercedes Classic, or you will have to spend a lot of time on trying to find and flea markets. Mercedes interiors have never been richly or exclusively decorated